Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Injury Law Pod. I am your host, Eric Bartlett, 29-year personal injury lawyer, and this is the podcast where we talk about all things personal injury law related. Happy Halloween. Today is the day. As we know, there's going to be lots of kids hitting the streets, looking for those treats, and hopefully not doing too many tricks. So it's a good time to just talk about some of the safety issues that go with Halloween night. And again, just as a reminder, October is National Pedestrian Safety Month. And this is obviously a night where there's going to be lots of pedestrians on the streets, obviously, lots of children. So, again, something to keep in mind, children are 3 to 4 times more likely to be struck by a vehicle on Halloween night compared to any other night. So it just cannot be put out there enough that we all need to be mindful of all these little people that are going to be running around. And the combination of darkness, excitement, and distracted driving can turn fun into a tragic situation very quickly. So now, something that's really important to know is that October ranks as one of the highest months for pedestrian deaths. And that's obviously one of the reasons October is National Pedestrian Safety Month. And again, per governmental sources, this is the night that there are lots of incidents that occur. October is the month. So we got to think about how we can prevent even one incident from ever happening in the first place. Here in Missouri, with our wide suburban neighborhoods, there's a lot of times there's poor lighting and there's fewer sidewalks. All of those add unique risk for trick-or-treaters. Couple recent stories in Missouri, specifically out of the Kansas City area. There were these two children a couple weeks ago that were killed in a separate scooter and bike accidents. And again, just within the last couple weeks, they were both in residential settings. And again, it just underlines how vulnerable our young people are, young riders, scooter operators, whatever that looks like. And again, when you look at Halloween, you've got this increased evening foot traffic. You may have kids on scooters and or bikes that are being used for trick-or-treating. And so there's just a lot of danger that's out on what should be a really fun night for kids. But a lot of the common scenarios that we see are drivers turning left while children are crossing the street, again, kids darting out between parked cars, and distracted or unfortunately impaired driving after Halloween parties. And again, whether you're in the city or out in more rural areas, obviously affects things because out in the rural areas, again, you don't have the street lighting and the sidewalks that you're going to probably find in closer into the city. So if you're out in those areas, you have to pay particular attention to all the possibilities that come along the streets if you're operating a vehicle. And again, if you're the one in charge of children, you have to be mindful of what they're doing at all times. So again, in Missouri, drivers must yield to pedestrians that are in crosswalks, and they must exercise caution in residential areas. And again, tonight especially, there's just no reason to be driving anywhere near a fast speed if you are along residential streets. You should be well under the speed limit at all times. And again, keeping a close eye out for any possible child coming into your travel path at any time. And in Missouri, we always look at if something does happen, even if it's a pedestrian, was there any blame there on the person that got hit? Now, again, remember this, when you're dealing with a child, you're looking at basically the standard is the reasonable actions of a child of that age. So if you're operating a vehicle, you have the duty to exercise the highest degree of care because you are basically behind the wheel of a deadly weapon. There's no question. Cars, trucks, whatever that looks like, are deadly, can be deadly. And so you, as the operator of that vehicle, have to exercise the highest degree of care. And meanwhile, if it's a child, again, the expectation is they're going to be acting like a child. And again, we're always hopeful that parents are nearby and they're keeping track because, again, because they are children, parents are responsible for their actions. But in any such situation where if a kid is hurt in a vehicle, pedestrian type situation, the standard types of damages can be claimed: medical bills, pain and suffering, future care. If a parent has to take off work to care for a child, something like that, they can claim lost wages if they have to miss that time from work. And there's also, when you get outside the realm of vehicles, there's homeowner potential liability. Because again, if you have your porch light on, you're inviting kids up to your front door to participate in trick or treating at your house. You have to make sure your premises are safe. Again, we all know they're going to be coming up in the dark. And so, is your area well lit? Are there any hazards that you know about that are not going to be obvious to somebody coming up to your house in the dark? Things like that. You, as the homeowner, owe a duty to keep your property reasonably safe for trick or treaters. So, again, well lit paths, no tripping hazards, cleared walkways, things like that. Again, if you're listening to this, it's a great time to go out there. Make sure you're providing a safe path for kids to make it up to your front door. And we always have to be thinking that kids a lot of times cut through the yards. So, is the yard free of any hazards? Do you have any holes that may need to be covered, warned about, filled in, whatever that looks like? You just got to be thinking about, is there a potential for somebody to get hurt on my property tonight? And if there is, and I know about it, what am I doing to take care of it? Now, crazy enough, there's sometimes situations on the more rare side in a product's liability situation: flammable costumes, defective decorations, unsafe lighting. All of these have been known to lead to injuries. And so, again, do your best, right? See what your kids are wearing. What are they interacting with out there? And again, just doing everything you can to avoid ever even having to think about making a claim somewhere because of something that happened. But remember this: just like in any other negligence type claim that you might bring, a Halloween accident is going to look the same. There's going to be a duty. If you're the one making the claim, you're going to have to show that there's a duty on the person that you're claiming was at fault to that person. So again, if you've got your porch light on, you're inviting people to your house, you have a duty to make sure your area is safe. And if you're driving a vehicle, no question, you have a duty to everybody around you to operate your vehicle safely. Again, then the person making the claim is going to have to show that whoever it is, they breached that duty of care, meaning they didn't live up to it, they did something negligent. And then you're going to have to show causation between the breach of the duty and the injuries and damages that are claimed. And then finally, you do have to show there was some injury, there was some damage that came out of this. And so those are all key components to a claim of injury in a Halloween setting. And again, it's just like all the other situations we've talked about in the past. All right. So, most importantly, how do we prepare for tonight to make sure everybody gets their treats, gets home safely? Number one, if your kids are going to be out, they need some kind of reflective tape or glow sticks, flashlights, whatever that is, something that highlights them when they're crossing the street and they're moving around in the dark. Very important. So something on their costumes somewhere to bring attention to them. Again, you're better off avoiding darker costumes or masks. Kids wear masks. I get it, but it limits their vision a lot of time. And that's not helpful for them being able to see exactly what's going on around them. So just things to keep in mind. Also, talking to them about crossing only at corners, at intersections, if there are crosswalks, things like that, instead of just darting across street to street. Or if they're going to be doing that, obviously they need to be with a parent who's looking out, making sure vehicles that might be coming along see everybody. Those types of things really important. Another key thing is making eye contact with a driver, knowing that the driver sees you as the pedestrian before you assume they do, and you make the move to go across the street. So, again, just really important things. And again, best practice here would be not riding scooters or bikes after dark unless they have lights on them. Again, that's going to bring an element of speed to the equation. And now instead of somebody walking, they're moving at a higher rate of speed, which increases the possibility that a vehicle doesn't have the same ability to stop, avoid a collision, things like that. Again, think about that before they go off on scooters or bicycles. Maybe walking is the best way to get around on a night like tonight. For drivers, just again, 10, 15 miles per hour in neighborhoods. Generally speaking, neighborhood streets are a 25 mile per hour speed limit. And tonight, that's just going to be too fast because there's just too many people out on foot walking around. And so the slower, the better. And again, no phones. This just goes without saying, but anytime you're behind the wheel of a vehicle, that phone should not be in your face. And as a matter of fact, it's illegal in Missouri to have a phone in your hand when you're operating a vehicle. So not only is it a great idea not to do it, it's also the law. And obviously, headlights need to be on sooner rather than later. Give every opportunity for pedestrians to see the vehicle. And as you're driving a vehicle, tonight especially, you're going to have to expect sudden movements, right? Kids can dart out into the streets at any time. I've personally experienced that. And again, Halloween's just a crazy time. So it's just a really good time to be really alert, especially if you're the one behind the wheel. And obviously, if you're going to Halloween parties, don't drive if you've been drinking. And again, this is the long told story that it just does not make any sense because unfortunately, impaired driving does spike on Halloween night. And if you're going to be drinking, just don't drive. It's that simple. Now, for homeowners, again, some great tips. Keep your walkways clear of cords. Sometimes people have lights and decorations out there and they've strung an extension cord across their sidewalk. That's not a good situation because it creates a trip hazard. So either don't do that or make sure that cord is highlighted so people know it's there, whatever that looks like. Again, decorations, not putting those up in a situation that creates a hazard. And even now, especially, we've had a lot of rain and stuff here the last few days. So, wet leaves, if your sidewalk's covered with debris and stuff, you need to clear that out before tonight because, again, you're going to have a lot of people coming to your house and you want to make it as safe as possible. Another thing is use battery operated candles and pumpkins and not actual candles. Again, there's fire hazards involved. Do your best to light up driveways, porches, the walkways that you know kids are going to be coming up. If you can find some cheap LED solar type things, whatever that looks like, get them out there, make it clear where you want the people to walk and where they're walking is safe. And hey, remember this too. If you've got animals, if you've got dogs, make sure they're well contained, because what you don't want is to have your dog attack somebody tonight. And that leads to a whole nother claim and can be a disaster for a little kid that gets attacked by a dog. So again, good thing to think about. Where are your pets going to be? So, as a takeaway to all of this, remember Pedestrian Safety Month, it's not just a slogan, right? It's there for a reason. It's about awareness that could save a life. And just imagine this: if a driver hits a trick or treater while running through an unlit intersection, what happens next? How do investigators determine fault on that? Obviously, they're going to start with the driver, because that's the person, again, obligated to exercise the highest degree of care. What were they doing? How fast were they driving? Were they distracted? Had they been drinking? It's all going to focus on the driver. Then they're going to look at, again, the person that was hit. Were they in a crosswalk? Had they yielded? Did they need to yield at that point? Were they aware that there was a vehicle there? All those things. But that's how it's going to all come together. But it starts with the driver. And that's why, as the driver, you have to be exercising the utmost care. There's just no question about it. And again, in any of these situations, God forbid something does happen, evidence that's going to be important will be photos, police reports, witness statements, the lighting conditions, what the weather was here in the Kansas City area. I think the weather's supposed to be good, no rain, all that kind of stuff. But all of those things could become very critical if an accident happens. The other thing is, more detailed will be black box data off the vehicle, show what the speed was, what the maneuvers were of the vehicle, those types of things. Again, that's why if something bad happens, you don't want to wait around. You want to call a personal injury lawyer to get involved, make sure things are being preserved that need to be preserved. And there's just really no time to wait. Medical attention, obviously, number one priority when anything like this does happen. But then the next step is getting that evidence together. And you have to remember, we as personal injury lawyers, not only do we play a role in someone's recovery and their compensation, but for example, like doing this podcast, we're advocating for safer streets and accountability. And we're getting the word out there that this can be avoided. Accidents don't have to happen. If everybody takes that moment, be prepared, pay attention, we don't ever have to be here. And that's what's key to all of this. So here's to hoping everyone has a wonderful Halloween night. Kids get lots of candies. Everybody makes it home safely. And until the next episode, be safe and be well.